VMV-class patrol boat was a series of Finnish patrol boats which served with the Finnish Coast Guard and the Finnish Navy during World War II. Development. The VMV boats were designed by Dipl. Eng. Jacko Rahola of the Finnish Navy. The design was good, giving the boats excellent seagoing qualities, fast speed and a light construction, and thanks to the wooden hull, resistance to magnetic mines. The boats only weighed about 30 tons, the length were between 20 and 25 meters. The standard armament consisted of one 20mm automatic cannon, although they could be armed with wide variety of weapons depending on the requirements. The first boat was ordered in December 1929 from Suorten Venäjävastaamo in Helsinki. However, construction of this boat was delayed, and two boats that had been ordered from Germany were ready before the first Finnish one. The following two boats were ordered in January 1931 from Uudenkaupung and Venäjävastaamo, and they were ready by December the same year. Another order was then placed for one boat from Turun Venäjävastaamo, and it was ready by 1932. A further 10 boats were ordered in 1934 from Turun Venäjävastaamo. These were ready by 1935. VMV-1 VMV-7 were equipped with gasoline engines, and VMV-8 VMV-17 had diesel engines. VMV-3 and VMV-7 were destroyed before the war, the former due to an engine fire in 1931, and the latter due to an explosion in 1933. The only remaining VMV boat, VMV-11, is today preserved at the Kotka Maritime Museum in its original outfit of the 1930s. Operational service. At the outbreak of the Winter War, the VMV boat armament was improved by fitting machine guns, depth charges and smoke discharges. During the Continuation War, the extra armament varied depending on the mission. For example, they could be fitted with 4 or 5 naval mines or 2 450mm torpedoes. Some VMV boats were also used as gunboats, and were fitted with a 40mm Bofors gun and multiple 20mm guns. Some were used as submarine hunters, and were equipped with a 20mm gun and depth charges. Limited to patrol coastal waters, the VMV boats did not participate in any major action during the Winter War. During the Continuation War, the primary tasks were anti-submarine warfare and escort duty, although several boats participated in battles for control of islands on the Gulf of Finland. 5 VMV boats were lost during the war, all in 1944. 2 were sunk during air raids in Helsinki. 1 was lost to Soviet aircraft near Koivisto, and 2 were lost when the Germans attacked Hogland during the Lapland War. Vessels of the class. The Finnish Navy ordered 2 boats from Viking and Amp Rasmussen in Bremen, Germany in January 1930. Since the construction of the first boat, the future VMV-3, was delayed. These boats were ready by June 1930 and were taken into service in 1931. They had a length of 25.00 meters, beam 4.10 meters, and a draft of 1.00 meters. They were equipped with 2 Maybach V12 gasoline-powered engines, producing 1,220 horsepower. The ships could reach speeds of up to 25 knots. Both VMV-1 and VMV-2 distinguished themselves in the battle against alcohol smugglers in the 1930s. VMV-1 made the largest ever confiscation of smuggled alcohol in Finland at the Åland Islands. VMV-2 intercepted a large smuggler vessel, the schooner Omar, in 1931. The large smuggler ship Israeli came to the other smuggler ship's rescue and tried to sink VMV-2 by ramming it, and a wild duel with small arms opened up. A few smugglers were wounded, but the wild boat ride was solved through the good seamanship of the VMV crew. and when the VMV opened up fire with the 20mm gun, the smugglers surrendered. During the war, VMV-1 served with the Varmistuse Live View, and VMV-2 was tasked with anti-submarine warfare. In 1942, both vessels were part of the 1. Varshamut-driven Live View. VMV-1 took part in the operation that led to the sinking of the Finnish coastal defense ship Ilmarinen. Facing the danger of explosion, she saved 57 men from the upside-down turned hull of Ilmarinen. She also participated in the Battle of Binska on the 26th of July 1941, together with VMV-2, VMV-13, and VMV-14. She was also part in the operation where the mine-layer Rilahti sank. She saved 11 men from the water, among them the commander of Rilahti, Captain Lieutenant Osmo Kivalana, who later died of his injuries. After the war, both vessels participated in mine-sweeping operations. Both vessels were scrapped in 1951, having served far longer than initially intended. The first VMV order was partially placed at Aries Motorverkstad and partly from Isuorten Venevastamo in Helsinki in December 1929. The boat was ready by November 1930. The vessel was destroyed on the very first day of service, due to a fire in the engine compartments on the 10th of June 1931. The fire caused great damage to the ship and the boat had to be scrapped soon thereafter. VMV-4 was originally a Norwegian-built smuggler's boat named Sterling. She was later confiscated by the Finnish authorities in 1931 and handed over to the Coast Guard. 2 more boats were ordered from Uudenkaupung and Venevastamo in Uusikaupunki in January 1931. These were practically identical to VMV-3, with only some minor differences. VMV-5 and VMV-6 were ready by December 1931. These boats had a higher superstructure compared to the other VMV boats, and could be easily distinguished from the other VMV boats. VMV-5 belonged to the anti-submarine warfare flotilla during the Winter War, and both ships belonged to the 1st and 2nd escort flotillas during the Continuation War. The following boat was ordered from Turun Venevastamo in April 1932. Externally it was identical to VMV-3 and the interior was similar to VMV-5. This boat was ready by 1932. However, an internal explosion destroyed the boat in 1933. This led to a redesign of the future VMV boats, and the subsequent vessels were given diesel engines. In 1934, the Finnish Navy announced a competition for 10 VMV boats. Turun Venevastamo won and was given the order in March 1934. These boats were a 1 meter longer and had a greater displacement than the previous boats. The boats were ready by 1935. VMV-8 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War and to the 2nd Patrol Flotilla during the Continuation War. She was sunk at her moorings during a Soviet bombing raid on Helsinki on the 26th of February 1944. VMV-9 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War, to the motor torpedo boat flotilla in 1941 and to the 2nd Patrol Flotilla between 1942 and 1944. VMV-10 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War, to the motor torpedo boat flotilla in 1941 and to the 2nd Patrol Flotilla between 1942 and 1944. She was sunk by German gunfire on the 15th of September, 1944, when the Germans tried to conquer the island of Hogland from the Finns during Operation Tan Ost. VMV-11 served between 1939 to 1941 in the motor torpedo boat flotilla and afterwards in the 2nd Patrol Flotilla. She is today preserved and restored to original appearance and at display at the Maritime Museum in Kotka. VMV-12 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War and to the 2nd Patrol Flotilla during the Continuation War. She was sunk at her moorings in Helsinki by Soviet bomber aircraft during a raid on 6 February 1944. VMV-13 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War and to the 1st and 2nd Patrol Flotillas during the Continuation War. She participated in the Battle of Binska, where she saved 13 men. Later on she sank the Soviet Shuka-class submarine -311, together with VMV-15, on 12 October 1942. In 1972 she was used as a water bus in Kalajoki, Kemanjärvi and Kajana. She was scrapped in the beginning of the 2000s. VMV-14 served between 1939–1940 as a submarine hunter, and during the Continuation War in the escort flotilla and the 1st and 2nd Patrol flotillas. She was sunk by German gunfire in the Suokaila harbor on the island of Hogland on 15 September 1944, when the Germans tried to conquer the island. VMV-15 belonged to the anti-submarine warfare flotilla during the Winter War and to the escort flotilla, and the 1st and 2nd Patrol flotillas during the Continuation War. Together with VMV-13 she participated in the sinking of the Soviet submarine -311, on 12 October 1942. She was damaged in an air raid west of the island of Koivisto on 18 June 1942. VMV-16 belonged to the anti-submarine warfare flotilla during the Winter War and to the escort flotilla, and the 1st and 2nd Patrol flotillas during the Continuation War. VMV-17 belonged to the escort flotilla during the Winter War and to the motor torpedo boat flotilla, and the 1st and 2nd Patrol flotillas during the Continuation War. She was damaged by gunfire on the 22nd of May 1943, while on patrol. 2 men were killed and 1 wounded, however she managed to sink 2 Soviet vessels during the same engagement. VMV-17 was sunk by Soviet aircraft on 6 February 1944 near the island of Koivisto. VMV-18, VMV-19 and VMV-20 were originally used for maritime training by the Finnish Civil Guards. The boats were handed over to the Coast Guard in 1944 when the Civil Guards had to be disbanded. The boats had a displacement of 21–22 tons and could reach speeds up to 10–11 knots. VMV-18 had been constructed in Porvoo in 1935. VMV-19 and VMV-20 had been built in Tolkien in 1943. VMV-18 was scrapped in 1958. Wartime losses.